Nestled in a picturesque suburban enclave, my neighborhood was the epitome of charm, with manicured lawns and quaint houses that exuded a sense of community. Lush trees lined the streets, and children played freely, their laughter echoing through the air. However, beneath this idyllic surface lurked a powerful entity known as the Homeowners Association, HOA. Claiming to maintain property values and uphold neighborhood standards, the HOA wielded significant influence over our lives. As a new homeowner in this harmonious community, I initially thought the HOA's presence was reassuring. They sent out newsletters detailing local events and guidelines that were designed to enhance our quality of life. There were regulations about paint colors, lawn maintenance, and vehicle appearances, all aimed at preserving the neighborhood's aesthetic appeal. However, what began as a comfort soon morphed into an oppressive oversight that overshadowed my enthusiasm for homeownership. The tension brewed silently beneath the surface until one fateful day when I returned home to find my garage door ajar. An unsettling feeling washed over me as I walked closer. I had left my Lamborghini, a symbol of my hard work, safely tucked away inside. But as I stepped into the garage, I was met with an unexpected sight. The intrusive presence of two HOA representatives rummaging through my space. My stomach sank as I registered their intent, which was not merely to inspect but to assess potential violations regarding my prized vehicle parked in the garage. They claimed it posed a risk to property values based on their subjective standards. In that moment, everything shifted. The sanctity of my home had been compromised, and an audacious battle for my rights was about to unfold, igniting a series of events that would challenge everything I thought I knew about community governance and legality. The day started like any other, with the sun casting a warm glow over the neighborhood. I felt a sense of pride as I admired my Lamborghini gleaming in the garage, a testament to my hard work and aspirations. Little did I know that pride would soon be overshadowed by an unexpected violation of my privacy. As I returned home from a routine errand, something felt off. My heart raced when I noticed the garage door slightly ajar. Cautiously, I approached, sensing that something was amiss. When I stepped inside, my breath caught in my throat. Two HOA representatives were in my garage, digging through my belongings as if they had every right to be there. "What are you doing?" I demanded, a mix of confusion and anger flooding my voice. They turned to face me with expressions that ranged from surprise to indifference, as if they were unbothered by the intrusion they had committed. One of them, a tall man with an air of authority, responded curtly, "We're here to assess potential violations regarding your vehicle." I was taken aback. Violations? What do you mean? I could hardly believe what I was hearing. It felt surreal that they would invade my private space without prior warning or permission. They explained that certain vehicle regulations were in place to protect property values and maintain the neighborhood's aesthetic, terms that seemed subjective at best. Despite my protests about their unlawful entry, they continued their inspection with an unsettling calmness. They pointed fingers at my Lamborghini as if it was somehow a blight on our charming community rather than a symbol of aspiration. In that moment, my sense of security shattered. This wasn't merely about a car. It was about my right to privacy and autonomy within my own home. The confrontation marked the beginning of an escalating conflict between me and the HOA, one that would challenge both their authority and my resolve. After the initial shock of the unwelcome intrusion, I braced myself for what was coming next. The tall HOA representative, who had asserted their authority with an air of superiority, began outlining their accusations regarding my Lamborghini. Their tone was condescending as they explained that the vehicle violated several HOA regulations intended to maintain the neighborhood's aesthetic and property values. "First of all," he stated with a dismissive wave of his hand, "your Lamborghini is classified as a non-standard vehicle. It doesn't align with our guideline on acceptable car types for this community." The implication that my prized possession, which I viewed as a symbol of achievement, could somehow diminish the neighborhood's charm felt absurd. He continued, citing a rule that specified all vehicles must fit within specific size limitations to ensure uniformity in appearance. Additionally, he added, "The color and style of your car don't match the approved palette for our community." Their reasoning struck me as nothing more than personal bias and subjective opinions rather than legitimate concerns. The final straw came when they presented an absurdly large fine for these so-called violations, an amount that could significantly dent my finances. My heart raced at the thought of being penalized for owning a piece of machinery that represented years of dedication and hard work. As they handed me the official notice, filled with legal jargon I barely comprehended, I felt a surge of anger. Is this really how you choose to enforce community standards? I retorted, incredulous at their audacity. Their cold demeanor gave no hint of remorse or reconsideration. They were merely following orders to exert control over what they deemed appropriate. This confrontation not only questioned my rights but also ignited a fiery resolve within me to challenge their authority and fight back against their overreach into my life. As I stood there, clutching the notice of violation in disbelief, a whirlwind of emotions surged through me. Shock was the first to hit. How could the HOA think it was acceptable to invade my private space? My garage had always felt like my sanctuary, a place where I could celebrate my achievements and enjoy my prized possessions without judgment. The audacity of their actions left me reeling. Anger quickly followed the shock. It wasn't just the fine that ignited my frustration. It was the sheer disrespect they displayed by treating my home like a public domain open for inspection. To them, my Lamborghini was merely an object to critique, but to me, it represented years of hard work and sacrifice. How dare they label it a non-standard vehicle, as if it were a blight on their precious neighborhood. It felt deeply personal, as if they were disparaging not just my car but my very identity and accomplishments. In that moment, I felt a surge of injustice course through me. The violation of my privacy wasn't just an infringement on personal space. It was an affront to my autonomy as a homeowner. I pondered how many others before me had faced similar indignities in silence, their voices drowned out by the oppressive weight of HOA regulations. I realized that this was about more than just one car or one fine. It was about standing up for myself and asserting my rights against an overreaching entity. Determination began to replace my initial shock and anger. I resolved not to let them intimidate me into submission. Instead, I would fight back against this unwarranted invasion and reclaim my sense of security and dignity in my own home. This confrontation had awakened a fierce resolve within me, a promise to challenge their authority and protect what was rightfully mine. Fueled by a newfound determination, I dove into researching the HOA regulations that governed my community. I needed to arm myself with knowledge, so I began by scouring through the documents provided when I purchased my home. The HOA had given me a hefty binder filled with rules, guidelines, and bylaws meant to outline the expected standards for homeowners. As I flipped through the pages, I took detailed notes on any sections that pertained to vehicle regulations, privacy rights, and the procedures for imposing fines. Next, I turned to the HOA's website, where many of these regulations were available in digital format. I discovered forums where other homeowners shared their experiences dealing with the same association, some even discussing successful challenges against unwarranted fines. These accounts became invaluable as they highlighted not just the rules but also potential loopholes that could be exploited. I also reached out to neighbors, hoping to gather insights from those who had lived in the community longer than I had. Some shared stories of their own battles with the HOA and provided me with copies of previous correspondence they had maintained. Through this networking, I stumbled upon a clause buried deep within the regulations that detailed homeowners' rights regarding privacy and entry into personal property. It stated that before any inspection could take place, the HOA was required to give proper notice, a requirement they clearly overlooked. Armed with this information, I felt a surge of confidence. The violation notice suddenly seemed like a weak attempt at control rather than an unassailable decree. Understanding my rights gave me clarity and focus. I was no longer just reacting to their overreach. I was preparing to confront it head-on with documented evidence and legal backing. This journey of research was not merely about defending my Lamborghini. It was about standing up for all homeowners who might feel powerless against an overbearing authority. As I delved deeper into the HOA regulations, a particular clause caught my eye that could shape my strategy against their unwarranted claims. Buried within the dense legal jargon was a specification outlining the rights of homeowners regarding inspections and property access. It stated explicitly that any request for an inspection must be accompanied by a written notice provided at least 48 hours in advance. This meant that the HOA representatives had not only violated my privacy, but had also failed to follow their own established protocols. The moment I grasped the implications of this clause, a rush of exhilaration coursed through me. The HOA's justification for entering my garage without prior notice was fundamentally flawed. They had no legal grounds to claim authority over my personal space absent a formal process. This loophole opened up a pathway for me to contest not only their invasion but also the fine they had imposed. In addition, I discovered another intriguing aspect. The regulations referenced specific types of vehicles permissible within the community context but lacked clear definitions or standards for what constituted a non-standard vehicle. This vagueness indicated that the HOA could not unequivocally justify their actions aimed at penalizing me based solely on subjective interpretations about my Lamborghini's presence in the neighborhood. Empowered by these findings, I meticulously documented each relevant regulation and prepared to leverage this evidence not just to refute their accusations but also to file a counterclaim against them for violating my rights as a homeowner. My legal research had transformed from a reactive measure into a proactive stance against an unjust system. This was about more than reclaiming my pride. It was about ensuring that no other homeowner would be subjected to such an overreach again. With renewed confidence, I felt ready to confront the HOA armed with factual strengths that could turn the tide in my favor. With the evidence in hand and a solid understanding of my rights, it was time to craft a strategic response to confront the HOA. I knew I needed a well-organized plan to present my case effectively. First, I gathered all pertinent documentation, including the HOA regulations that outlined inspection protocols and definitions of vehicle classifications. I printed copies of the relevant clauses, highlighting the specific requirements for notice before inspections and the ambiguity surrounding what constituted a non-standard vehicle. Next, I created a timeline detailing the events leading up to the HOA's unlawful entry into my garage, noting dates, times, and exact quotes from their representatives. This chronological account would help establish a clear narrative for my violation notice and underline how their actions contravened their own rules. I also decided to gather testimonials from neighbors who had faced similar challenges with the HOA, hoping to demonstrate a pattern of overreach that needed addressing. These accounts would provide additional weight to my argument that this was not just an isolated incident but part of a larger issue affecting multiple residents. In parallel to accumulating evidence, I meticulously crafted an argument that would counter their claims while asserting my rights as a homeowner. My approach was simple. Focus on the principle of privacy and highlight how their failure to follow proper protocols rendered their actions null and void. By emphasizing that the fine imposed was based on subjective interpretations rather than concrete facts or regulations, I aimed to dismantle their justification for both entering my garage and penalizing me for my vehicle. Finally, I prepared for direct communication with the HOA board by scheduling an official meeting where I could present my case. Armed with documentation and personal testimonies, I entered this confrontation not just as an individual homeowner, but as an advocate for those who felt powerless against the HOA's overreaching authority. This was about more than just defending my Lamborghini. It was about restoring balance and fairness within our community governance. The day of the meeting with the HOA arrived, and my heart pounded with anticipation and resolve. I walked into the community center, determined to assert my rights and challenge their authority. The room was filled with board members, each wearing expressions that seemed to blend skepticism and irritation. Taking a deep breath, I approached the podium, my neatly organized files in hand. As I began my presentation, I could feel the eyes of the representatives scrutinizing me. I started by recapping the incident, their unlawful entry into my garage followed by their infringement of my rights as a homeowner. It felt satisfying to lay out the timeline of events before them, emphasizing how their actions contradicted their own regulations. I pointed out the clause requiring a 48-hour written notice for inspections, which they had clearly disregarded. As I highlighted this crucial detail, I noticed some of their expressions shift slightly. Confusion mingled with irritation. I handed out copies of the relevant regulations for them to examine, ensuring they had no grounds to deny what was plainly stated. Next, I addressed the arbitrary nature of labeling my Lamborghini a non-standard vehicle. Without clear definitions in your guidelines, I asserted confidently, the basis for penalizing me remains subjective at best. The tension in the room was palpable as murmurs spread among the representatives. They were unaccustomed to being challenged so directly. Some board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others attempted to interject with weak defenses that fell flat against my well-prepared argument. Their dismissive attitudes began to fade as neighbors joined in by sharing their own stories of feeling stifled by excessive regulations. By the end of my presentation, it was clear that I had struck a chord. My fight was now an echo of many others who sought justice against unwarranted control. The HOA's representatives left visibly shaken. It was apparent they hadn't anticipated such an organized and passionate response from a homeowner willing to stand up against them. As I stepped away from the podium, I felt a rush of empowerment. This battle may have just begun, but today marked a significant step toward reclaiming not only my rights but also fairness for all in our community. The HOA's reaction to my presentation was a mix of defensiveness and palpable discomfort. As I concluded, the room fell silent, and the board members exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for the level of scrutiny I had brought upon them. The head of the board, a stern woman with a reputation for being unyielding, took the floor first, her voice a mix of irritation and disbelief. "We appreciate your input," she began, though it was evident that she was struggling to maintain her composure. "However, our regulations are designed to uphold community standards." Despite her attempt at maintaining authority, her words lacked conviction. I could see the other members shifting uneasily in their seats as they processed my arguments. One member, who had been particularly vocal during previous meetings about enforcing rules, attempted to dismiss my claims by reiterating their position on vehicle classifications. "The intent is to maintain property values," he insisted, but his defensive tone only highlighted their uncertainty. As I pressed further with my points, it became clear that they were losing ground. The board members seemed increasingly aware of the potential backlash from the community if they continued to dismiss my valid concerns. A few neighbors who had joined me in support began voicing their agreement, citing their own grievances with the HOA's overreach. Realizing they were cornered, the board retreated into a huddle. After a few tense moments of whispered discussion, the head of the board returned to address the room. "We will review your case and the regulations you've presented," she stated more curtly than before. "Consider this a pause rather than an acceptance of your claims." The meeting ended with a sense of uncertainty hanging in the air. While they hadn't outright apologized or rescinded the fine, the board's decision to review my case indicated that my confrontation had succeeded in shaking their confidence. As I walked out, buoyed by support from my neighbors, I felt a renewed sense of hope that perhaps change was indeed possible within our community. The battle was far from over, but I had sparked a dialogue that could challenge the status quo and shift power back into the hands of the homeowners. In the days following my presentation, the situation with the HOA began to escalate. While I had hoped they would resolve the issue promptly, their decision to review my case only fueled the fire. I received a notification for another meeting, this time scheduled specifically to address my claims and the surrounding community concerns. As word spread among residents, many expressed their own frustrations about the HOA's overreach, which amplified the tension and raised questions about governance in our neighborhood. Feeling that I needed further validation for my position, I sought legal counsel to ensure I was fully prepared for whatever direction this conflict might take. After consulting with a lawyer who specialized in property and HOA law, I learned more about my rights as a homeowner and the legal implications of the HOA's actions. My attorney advised me to document all communications with the HOA going forward, emphasizing that keeping a thorough record could be crucial if legal action became necessary. As the next meeting approached, I armed myself with not just my previous findings but also insights from my lawyer. The discussions with my legal counsel revealed additional potential violations of state regulations that could further support my case against the HOA. My attorney encouraged me to remain assertive but calm during future interactions and suggested that I consider proposing a meeting with other concerned homeowners to unify our stance. The subsequent HOA meeting was tense as community members rallied together to voice their grievances. Many echoed my sentiments about privacy infringements and arbitrary rule enforcement. The board members appeared increasingly defensive as they faced a united front of residents demanding transparency and accountability. This escalation helped shift the dynamics. Instead of addressing only my concerns, the HOA found themselves confronted by a collective voice of discontent from multiple homeowners. This broader movement not only strengthened my resolve but also made it clear that change was imperative within our community governance structure, setting the stage for a more significant confrontation that could lead to lasting reform. After weeks of tension and mounting pressure from the community, the HOA finally scheduled a follow-up meeting to address the situation surrounding my Lamborghini and the broader concerns raised by other homeowners. As residents filled the room, it was clear that the atmosphere had shifted. There was an air of anticipation as everyone awaited the board's response to our collective grievances. The head of the HOA opened the meeting with a brief acknowledgement of our previous discussions, but it quickly became evident that they were prepared to make some concessions. She announced that, after reviewing my case and the regulations pertaining to inspections, the board had decided to rescind the fine imposed on me. The news was met with murmurs of approval from those in attendance, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. However, the HOA didn't stop there. Acknowledging our concerns about privacy and transparency, they proposed revisions to their policies regarding inspections. The board committed to implementing stricter protocols for notification before any property inspections, ensuring that homeowners received written notice at least 48 hours in advance, an essential step in protecting residents' rights. Additionally, they agreed to hold quarterly meetings aimed at fostering open communication between homeowners and board members. This would provide a platform for residents to voice their concerns more regularly and hold the HOA accountable for its actions. While I was glad to see progress, I understood that this was just the beginning. The changes proposed marked a significant shift in how the HOA approached governance, reflecting a newfound willingness to listen to its members. As I left the meeting, I felt empowered not only for myself but also for my neighbors who had rallied alongside me. The battle wasn't just about my Lamborghini anymore. It had sparked a movement towards greater homeowner rights within our community. With renewed hope, I looked forward to participating in this evolving dialogue and ensuring that our voices continued to be heard. The outcome of my confrontation with the HOA not only benefited me but also had far-reaching implications for all homeowners within our community. The changes in policy and governance fostered by this incident illuminated the importance of awareness among residents regarding their rights and the rules governing their living environment. Many homeowners, who previously felt powerless or oblivious to the nuances of HOA regulations, began to educate themselves, realizing that understanding their rights was essential in maintaining their autonomy. The experience acted as a catalyst for discussion within our neighborhood, prompting many to attend HOA meetings and engage in dialogues about governance and policy enforcement. Homeowners who had once hesitated to voice their concerns now found courage in numbers, recognizing that collective action could lead to meaningful change. The newfound transparency promoted dialogue about the implications of arbitrary regulations and how overreach can impact personal freedoms. Moreover, the HOA's commitment to hold quarterly meetings introduced a structured platform for residents to express grievances, share experiences, and propose amendments to existing policies. This shift toward inclusivity gave homeowners a stake in decision-making processes traditionally dominated by board members. It underscored the necessity of active participation and vigilance among residents to hold the HOA accountable. As word spread about our community's changes, neighboring neighborhoods took notice, sparking their own movements toward reform. Residents began advocating for similar adjustments within their associations as they recognized that their voices mattered much more than they had previously believed. This experience taught not just me but all involved that proactive measures, like understanding regulations and advocating for clarity, are crucial in preserving one's rights. Ultimately, this battle was not just a personal victory. It became a powerful lesson on the strength of community advocacy and awareness, inspiring homeowners everywhere to challenge injustice and seek fairness within their governing bodies. Reflecting on the entire journey, I realize how profoundly this experience has shaped my understanding of property rights and community governance. What began as an alarming invasion of privacy transformed into a defining moment of empowerment not only for me but also for my entire neighborhood. Going through this ordeal opened my eyes to the often opaque nature of HOA regulations and the potential for communities to become silenced under an authoritarian structure. The initial shock I felt when discovering 2 HOA representatives in my garage was coupled with a strong sense of injustice that triggered my desire to fight back. As I navigated through research and advocacy, I learned that awareness is a powerful tool. Knowledge about one's rights can unravel the tight grip that authorities can sometimes hold over individual homeowners. The process taught me the importance of being proactive. Knowing the rules allows residents to stand up against arbitrary enforcement and advocate for themselves effectively. Moreover, engaging with my neighbors revealed the strength found in unity. Together, we were able to challenge the established norms of governance in our community, igniting dialogues that hadn't occurred previously. This collective momentum created an environment where issues could be shared openly and discussed freely, laying the groundwork for increased transparency within the HOA. Throughout these weeks, I also learned valuable lessons about persistence and resilience. Legal hurdles can be daunting, but confronting them with determination fosters personal growth. This challenge has instilled in me a sense of responsibility to educate and empower others facing similar trials so they can advocate for their rights. Ultimately, this experience was not just about protecting my property or my Lamborghini. It was about igniting a movement toward fairness and accountability in community governance. It has inspired me to remain actively involved, ensuring that our voices are consistently heard, fostering a culture where discussions about rights and responsibilities perpetually thrive within our neighborhood. In conclusion, the experience of confronting the HOA served as a powerful reminder of the critical importance of knowing one's rights as a homeowner and the necessity of effective engagement with community governance structures. Through this journey, I learned that vigilance, awareness, and preparedness are essential tools in standing up against unjust practices and arbitrary enforcement of rules. The initial shock of having my privacy violated prompted a deep dive into understanding both the regulations that governed our community and my rights as a property owner. By doing so, I transformed from a passive homeowner into an informed advocate, not just for myself but for my neighbors as well. It underscored that when residents take the time to educate themselves about HOA rules and their implications, they can effectively challenge overreach and assert their autonomy. Engaging with other homeowners was crucial in amplifying our collective voices and addressing concerns that spanned beyond individual grievances. The solidarity developed among neighbors reinforced the notion that community power lies in unity. Our shared experiences validated each other's struggles and fostered an environment where open dialogue about governance could thrive. This newfound transparency facilitated actionable changes within the HOA's policies, paving the way for increased accountability and responsiveness. This journey revealed that transformation is possible, but it requires active participation from those governed. The need for regular communication and engagement between homeowners and HOAs became evident. Such interactions foster an atmosphere where residents feel empowered to advocate for fairness and justice. Ultimately, this experience taught me that advocacy is not merely about fighting back when wronged. It's about fostering a culture of awareness, dialogue, and inclusiveness within communities. I hope that this incident serves as a catalyst not only for my neighborhood, but also inspires others living under similar governance structures to assert their rights, question oppressive rules, and contribute positively to building equitable communities. The journey may be challenging, but the rewards of empowerment and collective progress make it worthwhile.